Tonight, Trump's transition. A major shakeup in his transition team leads to questions about his policy plans, while the transition is in his demeanor has people wondering just which Donald Trump will get as president come January 20th. We'll discuss both. And then how will Congress deal with Trump? Will Democrats try to block his agenda, and should they? And will Republicans, including never-Trumpers, fall in line? Insight from the panel and from Hudson Valley Congressman-elect Republican John Faso. And later, recreational marijuana passes in 4 states and could be legal for 20% of Americans. Or will the Trump Justice Department shut it all down? That as we review the most interesting measures on ballots this week. Good evening, happy Veterans Day. Thank you, vets, and welcome to RFL. I'm Andrew Whitman. Richard French has a well-deserved night off. Lots of talk about President-elect Donald Trump's transition, both the team he will bring to the White House with him, and also the changes in the public face Donald Trump has been showing. First, the Trump transition team. It was job one today for the man preparing to become president. Behind closed doors at Trump Tower in Manhattan, President-elect Donald Trump working today on transition plans, deciding who will fill hundreds of jobs in his administration, including key cabinet posts.
The number one characteristic that Donald Trump is looking for is loyalty. It's something that we saw over and over in the campaign, and he also wants to have a personal relationship with whoever he chooses.
The transition team now being led by Vice President-elect Mike Pence, replacing Chris Christie. The New Jersey governor, as well as former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani, will be 2 of the transition team's vice chairs, and both men's names are also circulating as potential attorney general candidates.
What's your role expected to be?
I have no expectation. All I do is give my advice.
In the search for a chief of staff, some speculate the list of possible appointees includes Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, his campaign CEO and the former head of Breitbart News, Steve Bannon, and RNC Chairman Reince Priebus, who on Good Morning America avoided addressing whether he's being considered.
Well, I don't have any updates for you, George, on transition.
Meanwhile, Trump is also focused on how to turn his campaign promises into reality while working to build unity in our country and with foreign allies.
Mexico's president says that he's eager to work with President-elect Trump, but no way they will pay for a wall. But I think the world is waiting to see exactly what Mr. Trump's foreign policy positions will be.
3 other names on Trump's transition team: Ivanka Trump, Don Jr., and Eric, his eldest kids. That's causing some concerns, not just because they're related to Trump, but also because they help run Trump businesses and probably will run them come January, presenting enormous possible conflicts of interests. As for the softening of Trump's image, as so many have noticed since election night, mixed messages there literally. In consecutive tweets just 9 hours apart, Trump at first criticized those protesting his election, saying they were professionals incited by the media and very unfair, and then later noting their passion and saying we should all be proud. Deciphering all of this requires the help of experts like Michael Tobman. Michael is an independent political consultant and a black belt in Pilates. Congratulations on that. Dominic Carter's on the panel tonight, expert political journalist and author, and Scott Vanderhoff. You know he's an expert because as a former 5-term Rockland County executive, he's also the expert co-chairman of the Palisades Institute of Dominican College. Gentlemen, welcome. Appreciate it. So what should we all be looking for in the transition in terms of any names that come through to give us an idea of what kind of administration Trump's going to run? Is it the chief of staff? Is that the big one, Michael?
It certainly is, because that is the gatekeeper of all the information and manages the information flow in and out of the Oval Office. But we need to pull back 20,000 feet and take a look at this field. We had such a crowded Republican primary field, and Trump was such an outlier. We all got this wrong. Mm-hmm. We all got it wrong. He wasn't going to win the primary. He wasn't going to win the general. And there were so many qualified candidates who had their own supporters, and then the Never Trump movement. It is a bit of a limited pool of Republicans to draw from for these top positions if loyalty and always having been with him is the litmus test, because that ain't a big pool. And as the dynamic of the Republican primaries proceeded, and then through the general and the animosity and the internal conversations in the Republican Party, all that being said, you know, the mechanics of government, and it's vast, are very complicated. And there are government professionals who he could draw in to do this.
But Scott, because it seems like we know so little about what Trump actually is going to push for as president, because he was so vague in so many of his pledges on the campaign trail, it seems like we're watching for the transition team and the cabinet nominations really intently to try to get some sign of what he's going to do.
Oh, that's right. But wrong. But you know, a year and a half ago, I told you he was not going to be nominated by the Republican Party. I want to go back to that August when I said he couldn't get it. So You kept saying he'd get it, but I wasn't sure. The answer is this is a critical position. He doesn't have a lot of people he trusts. The reason Priebus is interesting is because he's really worked his way into that trust position. And most importantly for Trump, President-elect Trump, he's got to have somebody who understands the system and the people in the system. And I think when it comes down to this, he needs a Republican, but he needs somebody who understands all those and be able to talk to the various Republicans.
To this, I would just add, we're viewing so much of his campaign and now so much of his nascent administration through, I think, the wrong lens. What should we expect? What are we going to see next? We're going to see what we get, and it's sort of not to be flippant, but it is what it is, right? There's no rule book to this, so it's sort of like negotiating with someone who just going to say anything. Whatever comes next is what it's going to be,
But again, I think
and it's done.
we're reading those tea leaves so intently because we really don't know what he's going to push for. We really don't. So we're trying to get some sense of what that's going to be. And Dominic, I'm curious. The decision to move out Christie as transition chairman and move in Mike Pence.
That was the first test I was looking for, and Trump passed the first test. Now, I have a million other, in terms of a litany of issues to get to with the new president-elect, but he passed the first test as far as I'm concerned. If he wanted to be taken seriously, and we don't know who Trump, you're so right. He could wake up tomorrow and make Christie the Attorney General. So who knows? Let's put it this way: the rule of conventional politics, out the window completely. So, but he passed the first test because anyone that's serious, given what Christie has gone through in New Jersey and the convictions of some of his top aides, would say Christie's got to go. Now, Christie was loyal to Trump, but Trump is now the president-elect, and it appears that he said, arm's distance, you got to go. You can be the vice chair or the vice chair of my transition committee, but you're not going to be the top dog. So he passed that first test.
Wayne Barrett, I think it was Wayne Barrett, said there are no more worlds for him to conquer, right? This ceaseless, unending hole in him that just drove him to be the top. That's it. There's nothing bigger than this. So maybe now he'll finally settle down.
Very quickly, should we be concerned about the role of the Trump kids in either the transition or potentially the administration? Scott?
Well, ever since the Kennedy deal, where you had Robert Kennedy becoming the Attorney General, there's been discussion about that kind of nepotism that could exist. And I think he should avoid that. I mean, first of all, he's got the real problem: who's going to run his business and do it?
Well, they're going
without
to do it. Apparently, it's the kids who are going to run the business.
And of course, a blind trust requires a lot more than what he has said he thinks it's going to be. Right. But so I think he may not do it for that reason.
No more so than Chelsea would have had a role either at the foundation or somewhere else. I don't see it as a problem.
Okay, all right. Meanwhile, there is word of what could be the first Trump scandal to impact his transition. A Russian deputy foreign minister saying yesterday that Kremlin officials were in regular contact with Trump campaign staffers during the campaign. Trump repeatedly denied any connections while he was running, and a spokesperson denied it again after the report came out yesterday. So, Dominic, what should we make out of this? Is this trouble for Trump if it fleshes out? I mean, obviously right now it's just a report, it's not corroborated, but if we find out there was direct contact.
I don't see it as much of anything right now, completely, to be honest with you. There's no direct connection. We're probably not going to get the evidence that one would need to confirm exactly what happened in that situation. So I don't. What we're going to see now, and we're already witnessing it, and it's kind of bad. We're looking at the protection of the presidency right now, the institution. So all of his troubles are going to go away. All the women issue is going away. Oh, we're gonna settle that. But, he swore that he was going. Trump swore he was going to sue the women, and then the Trump Foundation. Oh, we're going to settle that. So we're looking at, and the same thing in fairness sort of happened with Obama when he came in and had a mortgage issue, and it went away. You're looking at the protection of the presidency. So all these issues, you'll see they're just going to go away.
There are historical precedents for this, as much as we'd like to think that Trump is an outlier. Candidate Reagan and his people were negotiating with the Ayatollah Khomeini to delay the release until after his election of the American prisoners.
The problem here, though, the real problem here is we don't know what policy Trump has. If we had a sense of what it is he sees the world, this would be less concerning, to me at least.
But there is a difference between the examples that you gave, even with Iran or even with the Obama mortgage, because if this fleshes out, then it's an indication that a foreign government played a role in the election, or at least tried to manipulate
That's
the
just how
election.
the world is now. Bobby Baker, who is LBJ's aide, was a minute away from giving his former boss up in some tawdry vending machine influence peddling scandal on November 22nd, 63. And the minute what happened in Dallas happened, the FBI agents were instructed to shut the questioning down, and Bobby took a plea.
Now here's what Trump, a good point. Trump failed the second test. I said I have a litany of them. Well, you're the president-elect. Mr. President-elect, we know you're a successful businessman. Stop pumping your properties. How do you put on your webpage, the president-elect of the United States, your hotels? How do you do that?
Because he's still a businessman.
Okay, but I want someone, these esteemed gentlemen, I want somebody to explain to me, if that's not a conflict of interest, then what is? Because what it's really saying is, if you want to be cool like me and be elected president of the United States, you want to stay in my hotels.
Anybody want to quickly respond to that?
I'm not going to his hotel, so I don't know.
All right. There was an odd moment from the Trump-Obama meeting at the White House yesterday that you might have missed. Listen to what the president-elect says about the president at the very end of this clip that came at the very end of their press availability.
Here's a good rule. Don't answer the questions when they just start. It's always the last one. Guys,
So Mr. Trump will seek his counsel?
come on, guys.
Will seek his counsel?
Let's go.
Very good man.
Thank you,
Very
guys.
good man.
Appreciate it.
Very good man? This is the guy who spent 8 years questioning the legitimacy of President Obama's birth certificate and trashing him up and down as the worst president of all time. And so my question is should I make anything of this? Is this that Trump will say anything or do anything?
Any politician
or is he trying to calm fears?
I agree with Dominic. Everybody, look, the truth and what happened yesterday is usually the least important part of any conversation at this level, which isn't to say the truth doesn't matter. Of course it does, but it does. But I said that yesterday. What is it Nixon's press secretary used to say? The president's comments from yesterday are no longer operative. Right?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter.
But let me it does matter, okay? It does matter to this extent. Today in the Wall Street Journal, suddenly we're not throwing out Obamacare, we're going to amend it because he had a discussion with the president. Now listen, those people out there who voted for him figured he said he was going to get rid of it. This is just the first thing. I think you're going to see this happen over and over again where he tempers.
He will say, all right, so the wall, what is the wall going to be? The wall will be, there will be a portion somewhere along our southern border that has a wall that will be reinforced. There'll be an agreement with the Mexican government to step up enforcement efforts on their side. There'll be some high profile busts and there'll be some extradition and then they'll claim success. Well, it's not a wall. Well, the wall was always a euphemism for something.
But doesn't that run the risk of alienating his supporters and then undermining his political clout once he's in the White House?
At some point, it will. I mean, yeah, I understand the cynicism with regard to politicians. I understand it.
I wasn't being cynical. I love it.
No.
There was no cynicism on my part.
But someone's going to stand up, Michael, and say, excuse me, where's the wall? You see, remember you were yelling about the wall? I mean, where is it? And they're going to show him a little fence that runs along, which is already one of the things. At some point, all those people, those 60 million people, are going to have a problem with that.
Yeah, we have about 3 hours of footage of people at Trump rallies chanting, build that wall, and then if that doesn't happen, I mean, at some point it's got to actually deliver on some of the promises that he made to his base, correct, Dominic?
Maybe I've been covering politics too long.
Maybe.
Do you really believe half of what comes out of any candidate's mouth? I mean, honestly?
No, but that's our job, is to point out inconsistencies.
Right, that is our job. That keeps us employed.
I had an interesting conversation with my 13-year-old, and I said, he lies so much all the time that they're not even lies. It's just, you just don't take it that seriously.
Right.
You know the old joke, like, as I'm incapable of telling the truth, it means I never lie. You just...
Listen, I got it. As a former elected official,
you're a better
I tried not to. I mean, you can shade things, but if we get to the point where you are right at the moment, then what's the point of having an election? Just call them all liars and look how they look and vote for the handsome one.
I believe he called your cynicism, sir.
It's okay, but here's what Trump is going to do as far as the wall. He's already said so. He has said that the U.S. is going to pay for it, and then Mexico will reimburse the United States. That's how he's going to get around it. I agree. They're going to build not this long wall, a portion of the wall the U.S. government will pay for it, and in the budgeting process, they will argue that Mexico reimbursed America for the wall.
We're going to have to send them a bill, and then we're going to have to send bill collectors, and then a
They've
repo
done
man
that.
to Mexico.
There was a sign at a Trump rally. It said, "Keep your government hands off my Medicare check." Okay, well, where do you think Medicare benefits come from? So what this really means, going back to the campaign, is you need to take these benefits away from certain kinds of people.
All right, up next, how will Congress deal with President Trump? And it's not just the Democrats. Will Republicans, including the never-Trumpers, now follow their parties and the nation's leader? And how are they reading their election mandate? We asked the Hudson Valley's newest congressman-elect, John Faso, next.